I'm Nicky, and this is the Smart Business Growth Podcast, where we ditch the busy trap and get real about what it takes to drive sustainable sales, lead with clarity, and build a business that's future fit. Let's dive straight into it. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Smart Business Growth Podcast YouTube channel. I don't even know if you can see my face right now, and you might notice if you're watching the YouTube channel, I'm not in my usual office. I'm in Melbourne, and you can see the view behind me, but again, I can't tell with the lighting. But I thought, you know what? I'm not going to let that stop me from jumping in and having a quick conversation with you about this concept of time, this concept of living our one wild and precious life. I saw Mel Robbins last night, and I love how she talked about her point of view and perspective on time and how we can make the most of this life. Because if you've watched my TEDx talk, and if you haven't, or if you want to watch it again, I'll pop the link in the show notes or somewhere in the YouTube channel. And I talk in my TEDx talk about this fact that we have 4,000 weeks on this earth if we are lucky, if we are fortunate enough to live to 80. And I read about this for the first time in Oliver Burkeman's book called 4,000 Weeks. And it's amazing. Great book. But what I realized listening to Mel, and I'm going to share a bit of her perspective around this as well. And what I realized is that whilst it's amazing to remember that we have a limited amount of time on this earth, that we, in the words of Mary Oliver, want to make sure we do fully experience and live this one wild and precious life, what that can actually do is create a sense of urgency. It can create a sense of pressure. It can create a sense of panic. And sometimes it's too much and we feel like perhaps it's too late. There's just too much overwhelm around what to do, whether it's too late because of age, because of phase of business, because of career, because that's what we've been doing for however long. And what I loved about what Mel Robbins talked about with time is she put this big screen up, and I'll get Jules to show the photo that I took on the YouTube channel. So if you want visuals, make sure you go check out the YouTube channel. She put this screen up and showed us that actually this is how many weeks we have. So it's the same information presented in a different way. But actually the narrative went a little bit different than I expected, because her message is, look at how much time we have left. And there's this positive assumption around we do have that time left, which is kind of cool. And so it got me really thinking. I'm in Melbourne. I'm watching the hot air balloons go across the city. It was very magical this morning. And I thought, actually, what we need to do is bring both of those mindsets together. Thinking about, oh my gosh, that butt clench moment that we only have X amount of time left, and is really important, because what that does is it taps into our motivator, our moving away from pain motivator, which actually is really great in terms of taking action and getting our bums off the seat. Like, think about moving away from pain motivator is after Christmas or Easter when we've eaten so much food. It's like, right, I feel really gross. I'm going to go to the gym because I need to feel healthy again. Or I'm in that job that I hate. You know what? I just had a really bad conversation with my boss. The pain is big enough. We're not consciously using those words to say, I'm going to look for another job. So the pain motivator is like a rocket fuel. It gets us going, but it only takes us so far. And I think that's where sometimes then, if we're only focusing on that in terms of live every day like it's your last, if we're actually living our day every day as though it's our last, there's a lot of pressure attached to that. Great for a motivator, but what's going to sustain that? And that's where the pleasure motivator comes into place. So pleasure motivator is that we are actually moving towards something that we want, something that we like, right? So if we think about, we get off the couch and go to the gym because we feel like crap, but we keep doing it because we start to feel good, and then we've got a goal, and we might have those swimmers we want to wear, or we've got that event that we just want to feel kick-ass. So the pleasure of that outcome keeps the momentum going. We can't rely on motivation because motivation is fickle. Some days we have it, some days we don't. It's inconsistent. But we can look at how we're strategically using the pain motivator and the pleasure motivator that keeps the sustenance, keeps us going. And it's the same thing with this. Yes, we only have 4,000 weeks left on this earth, or if we're lucky enough to live to 80. Yes, we want to bring this sense of appreciation. Like, why do we say, let's live our day as though it's the last? But if we only focus on that, it's exhausting, it's pressure, it creates panic. And so actually we need to flip over to this perspective as well that Mel talks about, which is going to be the continual sustenance momentum. And it's actually looking at, and I have all this time left to do it. It's never too late. Whether we are 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, we're so fortunate to live in this world where, 90, 100 is accessible for a lot of people if we start to take care of ourselves. And this image up here that you can see on the YouTube channel is, Mel talked about challenges she was going through. And reality was there's a 2-year period, as you can see in this photo. They're just photos from the event. So massive props and shout out to Mel Robbins. So 2 years, really painful. But what it felt like was this photo. It felt like it would be forever. It felt like it would be for eternity. And I think that's such an important thing to remember, is that when we're going through the tough times, when we're going through adversity, it might feel like it will be for the rest of our lives. But in fact, we have so much of our life yet to live. And so when we can have that perspective, and if I come back to the pleasure motivator, actually what I see that being is finding a way to live in awe, or to find moments of awe. Now, the definition of awe, I looked it up, is an overwhelming emotion in a positive way of admiration, wonder, inspired by something vast or majestic or powerful, such as nature or a profound accomplishment. And if we think about it, technology, music, live music, nature, I love going to the planetarium because it gets me to that sense of awe and wonder. When I was watching again over this city this morning, I wasn't expecting it. I saw the hot air balloons coming across the city, and it got me to a place of awe. It could be actually stopping and looking at a tree on your daily walk. It could be stopping to ponder, watching a baby sleep, or looking at a loved one. There are moments of awe that are within our grasp, within our reach in everyday moments. So instead of putting pressure on ourselves to live every day like it is our last, yes, we need that perspective to tap into sometimes. But actually, what's the purpose behind that? I think it's to be present and enjoy life in whatever we're doing. To actually look at, can I find those moments of presence, of awe? And what can I do to make sure that actually I am bringing in, I talk about time freedom, which is ultimately choice of how and where we live our life. And for everybody that's watching and listening to this, I'm going to make a pretty accurate assumption that we are privileged. We have the opportunity to be able to make a lot of choices that a lot of people in the world don't have. And so let's not be remiss with that. Let's actually take that as an opportunity to lean into gratitude and do something with it. Whether it's that risky move that you were thinking about doing in your business, whether it's that thing that you want to roll out with your team, whether it's personally the challenges or the things to get out of your comfort zone. What can you do today to make sure that you are finding those moments of appreciation or awe? Because when we're in that place of identifying the magnificence around us, if you like, we then are able to realize A, our significance, and B, how amazing this world actually is. And more than ever today, we need to find those moments, because those moments, it's very easy to get pulled away from that, whether it's in the news and what's happening globally. And I truly believe, and this is something that really came out of COVID, that one of the best ways that we can heal the world is actually through healing ourselves. So by bringing in joy, by bringing in presence, by bringing in mindfulness, we then are able to impact ourselves and therefore the people around us. And that has a ripple effect. So really key things out of today is, yes, we've got to lean into that pain of live our every day like it's the last, but we have to balance it with, we have so much of our life left to live. What's one small decision that I can make today that my future self will thank you for? A couple of questions that Mel Robbins posed to us. If nothing changes, I want you to think about this. Where will I be in 5 years' time? Maybe take a moment to reflect or journal on that. And here's the other thing that I really loved, that a tip that was shared. If we think too much about how we feel about a thing, it can actually keep us stuck. So the example that Mel gave was around, those mornings you just don't want to get out of bed. And the more you think about, oh, I don't want to get out of bed. Bed feels so soft and calm and cozy. Da, da. Well, the more we think about it, the more we get stuck. It's harder to get out. And I actually think that that is a micro example of how actually, if we macro it out, that would play out in so many parts of our lives. If we think too much about how nervous we are about something, it can keep us stuck. If we think too much about how scary it is or how far out of our comfort it is, or, I've been talking a lot and just recorded a podcast episode on tough conversations. If we keep thinking about how hard that conversation is going to be, the more we get stuck. So really, another message I want to give you today is stop thinking so much. Stop thinking so much, myself included. I'm going to take this on with both hands, and I'm going to think about, ironically, what can I stop thinking? Like in the moment, catching myself, stop thinking about it and just take some action. Remember that balance of we need to tap into the pain motivator, but we also need to tap into the pleasure motivator to move us towards, even if it's living our life fully, that's a big thing, right? Regardless of what it is. So my friends, I've given you a few things to think about here, some really big, beautiful messaging. I hope that you are hearing the messaging in this and you are thinking about how can I apply this into my world? Done is better than perfect. Again, I have this amazing view for you to look at. Don't know if you can see my face. Hopefully you can. I'm about to go and explore Melbourne. I'm about to go hang out with some friends. It's a Sunday. And I just had to jump in and record this message for you because it will be as profound as you want it to be, as you choose it to be. And the most important thing is, what will you take out of this? What will you implement? And what I'd love for you to do, if you so choose to accept this invitation, is to find one thing that leads you into awe. And again, it doesn't have to be huge. One of my favorite things is putting my hand on a tree and looking up and just staring at the tree and but staying there for a minute so you can actually see the beauty, or lying on the ground and just cloud gazing. Find that moment of awe. It's magnificent, but it doesn't have to be big, if that makes sense. If you've got any questions on this, or if you want to keep the conversation going, please reach out to me. I absolutely love that you have joined me here today, and I can't wait to see you on the next one. Bye.